Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aneta Buchert and I'm a Senior Director at the Global Institute of Credit Professionals and the host of today's session. Today's webinar consists of two roughly equal parts. The first one is an interview with our special guest, and the second one is a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please do submit them via the Q&A functionality and we will answer them in the second part of the seminar. Before I go and introduce our special guest, let me say a few words about the Global Institute of Credit Professionals. The Institute was launched in January 2023 with the backing of Fitch Group, and it helps professionals stay at the forefront of the financial industry developments by providing them with access to thought leadership, networking, events, career advice, and lifelong learning. If you'd like to learn more about the Institute, you can visit the website at www.gicp.org. You can find out about the Institute's offering and its complimentary membership. Now, let me introduce our today's speaker, Rob Tucker. Rob is a Managing Director and Head of Client Learning Solutions at Fitch Learning. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, Aneta. So great to virtually meet you all. In terms of my role, I head up all the learning initiatives, the training programs that we design and deliver for our clients on a global basis. And just to clarify in terms of clients, we work with a whole range of financial services organizations across the globe, pretty much in each sector within the financial services industry, and really work and partner with them to understand the gaps they have in the skills and what the future skills they're looking for. And just to give this a bit more context, we've worked this year with over 300 financial services organizations. We've designed, developed over 5,000 training initiatives, programs, academies, and that's to over 25,000 professionals working in the industry. Some going into their first role, but many also looking at skills development into their future careers as well. Just in terms of a bit of background about myself, I've worked in the markets and in the financial services industry since 1989. So over those 34 years and counting, lots of change has happened over those years. Even if I go back to my first role back in the 80s, I remember that role with the bank I worked at, and we didn't even have email in those days. You know, we still had inboxes, and we were transporting physical mail through the different levels and buildings of the organization. And if I move a few more years going forward, I remember the internet coming in, the World Wide Web. I remember that first being mentioning SEO, and that obviously transforming how we gain data and information. And then we've seen obviously a real transformation in terms of automation, harnessing technology. And we're now into, I'd say, the most exciting, the most fast, I would say, development, evolution in the industry as we come into the era of AI. And skills are going to change. It's undoubtedly going to be the case. So it's going to be really interesting, really useful to discuss how those skills will change and transform in the future.
Rob, thank you so much for this introduction. It looks like you're perfectly positioned to actually comment on the topic. So when you think about this, how do you see AI redefine the skill set necessary for building a successful career, and in particular for individuals in the financial services sector?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with maybe something that's quite a bit surprising, which I think you'll find that actually the skills that the business is looking for doesn't always align with what new entrants and professionals think the skills are. So, of course, there is a big demand and need for data scientists, machine learning specialists, those in AI. We know that, and we know those roles in technology are only going one way, they're increasing. However, if you were to ask businesses, stakeholders, key leaders in there, what are the skills that are missing from those entering the industry, what they'll put top is always quite consistent, which is the interpersonal professional skills. So behavioral skills, things that often we take for granted but don't really fully understand how important they are when we work in the industry. And these could be ranging from communication skills, personal effectiveness, presentation skills, storytelling with data, those kind of professional, interpersonal, behavioural skills are at the topmost. It'd be good to talk more about that as we discuss it today.
That's very interesting because the AI often implies the hard skills, and you're actually mentioning soft skills as being relevant.
It really does, and everyone focuses on the hard skills. They all think, oh, I've got to be proficient in coding, I've got to be all over what the latest innovations and technologies are. And the business say, yeah, that's great, use those, but actually what we want you to do is, how do you effectively communicate with others? Where's the human intervention gone? Where are those skills? And I have to say, post-COVID, we've seen those skills even diminish. And so it's becoming more and more paramount that we need to really develop those skills, whether they're relationship management with external clients, whether it's internal stakeholders, all those interpersonal behavioral skills, emotional intelligence that we need is actually becoming more and more important.
That's interesting and reassuring, actually. So, Rob, when you think about this, how does it differ for those that are just starting out in their careers versus those already more advanced, more senior?
Yeah, I'd have to say, if you're starting out, it might be you've just joined the industry, you're about to join the industry, you've got a competitive edge compared to definitely the likes of me, but also those maybe in middle career, even those who joined 5 years ago, because the Gen Z population have been brought up in the world of technology. Even if I look at my kids in their curriculum, they've got Python. They're all coding specialists. It's part of the school curriculum. They all know how to use AI. They ask ChatGPT and OpenAI sources everything from what they should have for breakfast to everything. But that's a benefit. They already know what AI can do. They're much more proficient than, say, those who are in middle and senior careers. So if you're looking for, and you're in a role and you're more in a senior management role, it's actually more an education piece of understanding what can be done. And also, obviously, it's thinking about it from a strategic perspective and think about how would you implement that from an organizational perspective. So I'd say early on, it's about utilizing the tools, the AI tools that we have, and making sure you understand the output and the application. More senior, it's more about, well, how are we going to use it, where are we going to use it, and how we're going to integrate it.
And thinking about the foundational skills everyone should develop, irrespective of AI, because AI is obviously not the only technological development out there. So what would you say these foundational skills everyone should have?
Sure. Okay, well, if we start with AI, you've got to start even before that with data. So it's a given that everyone needs to be data literate. And that would mean being able to analyze data, understand data sources. It's garbage in, garbage out. There's a lot of need that the data in the first instance is clean so that the outputs and the analysis can be done. So data analytics, data analysis, definitely needs to be with everyone. And then I'd say critical thinking skills. So how do you analyze it? What's important? How would you present that to more senior management? How would you assess what the key risks are and understand and have that, obviously human intervention in there? And then thirdly, it's communication. The teams that work within the organization are getting more and more integrated. I know, if we go back even a few years, and in my time, it was very much the technology function was important, but it would be very separate. But now technology has a seat at the table for front office, client-facing, middle office, infrastructure risk, compliance. It's everywhere. So I would say very much the foundational skills there would be being able to communicate effectively with other business areas in there to assess what the situation is and then to apply that.
That's very, very interesting, Rob. So we've talked a lot about skills. Let's move to the topic of the actual jobs, because AI will undoubtedly affect them too. So can you tell me, how is the financial services job landscape changing due to the AI?
Yeah, it depends who you speak to. You do have the naysayers who think we're all doomed, that there's not going to be any jobs for any of us going forwards. I see it much more positively. I'm a more glass half full. And, yes, as we mentioned before, I could reel off the usual suspects in terms of data science, data analytics, machine learning, AI roles, coding, etc., software development. But again, I'm going to put that to one side. I'd say everyone here would know that they are in high demand. In terms of the job landscape and the skills there, it's roles that you have the skill set where you can interact and engage with other parts of the business and other areas. And just to emphasize on that and why that's important, organizations are looking for more and more a diverse intake of new entrants coming into the industry. So if we looked historically, it would be very much, you've got to have an economics degree, or it's going to be mathematical or quantcy, and it was very quite niche. It's really more and more broadened, and it's getting even more broader because of AI and technology, that we need a whole range of skills. So those who are working in, let's say, humanities, liberal arts, or have that background, languages, history degrees, that's great because they'll have different perspectives. And also not necessarily having an academic degree, maybe having experiences in apprenticeships or in different ways. That really helps to think about what the job landscape is in there. So job roles, I do think there's still going to be a need for those roles in terms of whether it's client-facing, whether it's more internal in there. I just think they'll be much more interesting. I think a lot of the jobs will take away all that AI can do by itself, automation, repetitive tasks, and then it'll leave us to think more about, well, let's analyze what's coming in here. I also think ethical considerations need to be considered as well. I think there is going to be a risk that there's going to be too much reliance on thinking what we get from the AI tools is gospel. And I digress a little bit in terms of the question, but I think hopefully we can sort of discuss that a bit more later on.
Thank you, Robin. One thing we can be sure of that there's going to be a lot of change. So when you think about a career, what role does lifelong learning play in ensuring career longevity in the age of AI?
Yeah, lifelong learning has always been a case there. It's just becoming more and more important. And again, I'll give you an example. We work with a lot of organizations to design these early career programs. So new entrants coming into the industry, assessing what skills are they lacking, from previous intakes. What do organizations want us at Fitch Learning to focus on to ensure that we develop their skills? And within there, I mentioned that in terms of these professional skills and so on, it's become more and more paramount. But with lifelong learning, what used to be the case, historically, it'd be maybe going on a 4-week, 6-week, 8-week intensive boot camp right at the start. And then you let loose, you go on the desk and see you're on your own. That's really changed now. And all organizations are thinking more about a long-term drip feed of learning that's more on demand when you need it to really deal with how rapidly changing the landscape is. So the programs we now design for analysts are usually a 2-year time frame, to move that transition from analyst to associate, year 3+, and then having regular learning interventions on at least a quarterly basis on ensuring that you're keeping up to date on the most recent trends and the learning initiatives that are coming out.
So it's looking like the organizations are adjusting and becoming more agile.
They really are. They are definitely have a more agile learning set, not just in things like project management, but also in terms of how they view learning as well.
Brilliant. Rob, I have one more question to you. So just a reminder, if you have any questions to Rob, please do submit them via the Q&A functionality and we'll move to them really shortly. Rob, so thinking about the financial sector employees and especially those in credit-related roles, how can they stay ahead of the curve in the face of AI and other fast-moving developments?
Yeah, how do we all keep ahead of the curve? Okay, so we could all ask ChatGPT on there, and you'll get, of course, a whole source of a wealth of information of what we can do. And it's really trying to see through the hype, and particularly with AI. And that's where you need your sort of more human skills to try and assess what is useful. But to answer your question, what I'll focus on what we're doing at Fitch Learning to help those keep on top of the rapidly changing landscape and environment, and what we do in a number of different ways. I'll start with what we do in terms of obviously keeping up to date on AI, machine learning, and other more technical topics. We do have our own Quants Institute. Our Quants Institute started over 20 years ago, and no surprise, it's just grown so significantly. In the last 3 years, it's doubled in terms of size of membership and those taking the Certificate in Quantitative Finance, which is the global qualification now in that area. What we have with the Quants Institute, we have a series of thought leadership webinars and insights, and these are from industry leaders. If you look at who actually is presenting their views and their insights, it's really the leaders in AI, the leaders in quants, the leaders in the financial markets industry. So I definitely recommend going on to the Quants Institute website, cqfinstitute.com, and have a look at just the guest speakers there for upcoming webinars. They're all free to all as well. The Quants Institute that we have, CQF Institute, is free to membership, and you get real insights into there. There's forums as well in there, and focus groups and thought leaders really sharing their views. Just give a couple of examples. Next week, there's one on machine learning and hearing from industry specialists on that. And then later on in the year, there's a Quants Insights conference. And it's an amazing list of guest speakers from all around the globe, real leaders in their fields. So do have a look at that. So that's some one way we help and support the industry. The other way, closer to where we are now, we obviously have as you said, the Global Institute of Credit Professionals, and then we also have the Global Credit Certification within there. That we've launched in collaboration with the Institute earlier this year. We had input from Fitch Ratings, Fitch Solutions, to make sure it's useful in terms of current and how is it used in the credit community. And you did specifically mention about credit professionals. So really aim there is to support the credit professionals industry, and that credit certification has topics such as AI, machine learning. I'm sure you can expand on that. But there's a couple of ways that we are supporting the industry, just try and keep ahead of, or keep at least at the same pace of what's happening.
Yeah, indeed, and interesting. You've obviously mentioned the Global Credit Certificate. It does have a very big part that is focused on the new technologies and how they impact credit. And obviously that's critical at the moment, because the technologies impact not just the tools available to credit analysts, but also the underlying credit analysis. And that's a very valuable thing to have included, and also very forward-looking, because I don't think there are many training products that would. I actually don't think there are any training products that would be so forward-looking and including elements like this in the certification.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd definitely agree with that. If I'm thinking about credit certification, well, I don't think there's any really established certifications if you are a credit professional, which obviously with this webinar I'm sure many in the audience are, and then that forward-looking aspect, not just on AI and machine learning. I know ESG as well, obviously becoming more and more paramount. How is that integrated into credit? So it does have a number of those forward-looking topics, which is certainly helpful.
It does, and it was piloted with a number of institutions who have fed back that this actually is a very appealing aspect on this, and it's open now to the general public who can sign up and test it for themselves. Rob, thank you so much. That was really, really insightful. Let me now move to the Q&A part of the webinar. So again, if you have any questions, please do submit them. I have them all on my iPad here, so I'll read them out to Rob. And Rob, let me start with question number 1. And the question number 1 is, what do you see as key risks to job roles with the advent of AI?
Yeah, key risks to job roles. I'll take that in 2 aspects, if I may. We haven't really touched yet, and I think it's important to, what are the risks with the advent of AI? And then we can think about job roles linking to that. So if I start there, if I may, because of course we know that AI is largely unregulated. It's moved so fast there really isn't a regulatory framework there. I'm sure many on the webinar here will be aware that regulations are coming in. The EU in particular are looking to put a regulatory framework in place by 2025. I think they're going to find it tough because the goalposts are moving all the time with how AI is advancing, but at least they're making a go of it. And the risks are really more of ethical considerations, I would say, with AI. Again, I'm sure everyone's heard about the hallucinatory impacts of AI, how AI tools can start, these open AI sources can start to hallucinate, as it's called, which is come up with their own world and start to believe that actually the world we're in is actually different to the actual world. Sounds very Matrix-like. But the real risk there is then we come to the wrong conclusions. And I do think one of the key risks is, and I've seen this happen time and time again, is where we get a response from an open AI source, a generative AI tool like ChatGPT, and we just think it's gospel. We think, oh, right, yeah, that's the answer. I've got it now. Without actually really just making sure, does it make sense? Are we using our own skills in there? So I do think risk management is going to be key there. We, of course, use AI to manage risks, but we've got to make sure we set up the right parameters in the first place. And then the question was really about job roles. So as I said before, I'm not one of these, we're all doomed kind of people. I really don't think so. And history tells us that. You know, if we look at the Industrial Revolution, and you read the book, history books on that, it was all about, we're not going to have any jobs, it's all going to be done by machines. And then if I think about learning, I remember when e-learning came in, which is probably somewhere around the 90s, and everyone said, the classroom's dead, we don't need any training anymore. And here we are still doing that kind of training. It is very different though, I have to say. The training now is not about knowledge transfer, it's more about application of skills. So what we do in a virtual or in-person classroom is very, very different. But what that shows is we've adapted, we change. And that's where I think the jobs will happen. So, jobs at risk will be ones that are transactional, automative, not much thought needed, easy to set up, rules-based. And I will give you one example. This is an AI example. It's one I remember happening. So when I was working in banking, in my day, in the bank I worked at, we had over 500 cash equity traders in there when I started. Now I was looking at it, you can count them one hand, there's less than 5 working in equity trading because it's all been automated. We've got trading platform tools and not even needing AI to do that. So that is going to be accelerated by AI, those kind of roles, but then that will free up the roles that require critical thinking skills, problem solving, understanding, and then applying to the scenarios. There's going to be more of those kind of jobs. And then I'll say it again, those with requirements of the interpersonal behavioral skills are going to become more and more important.
Thank you, Rob. It's very, very insightful. So the next question we have is, as AI gets more sophisticated, has that led to less need for formal training courses?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Given that I work in financial education, thankfully not. Because I'll be now thinking about where I'm going to go. So unfortunately not, and it touches on what I mentioned before, which is it's the type of training that organisations ask us to do has rapidly changed, and this is even before AI. And AI is just going to accelerate it. That it's not going to be about knowledge transfer. We can all get hold of the knowledge, and we can get it really quickly, using AI tools or other techniques. So it's less and less about lecturing on knowledge, and it's more and more about, well, how would you apply it? So all of our training is based around scenario-based learning. So you've got the situation, usually based on real market scenarios. How would you approach it? What would you do? Did you think about the ethical considerations here, or did you just go with what the solution might be. So I would certainly expect that to be more and more. In terms of how we're training, we're using our own digital tools like virtual rehearsal, which is actually simulating a scenario with a client and then allowing the learner to play back and to actually rehearse what they would say back. And then they get a competency scorecard and assess their competency skills, technical as well as their behavioral skills. So yeah, fortunately, no, the training is just different now in terms of what we're getting requests. And again, it's all about the skills gap there in relation to what's needed. That's the hard skills, and then that's also the soft skills.
That's very helpful. So Rob, the next question is, with the rise of AI, how have financial institutions had to adjust their approach to learning and development?
Yeah, so with AI, what's happened, I'll take two aspects there because it was in particular learning development, but I'd also like to say how organisations have just really adapted as well. So in terms of the learning development, and we did touch on this a little bit before, but it's trying to see how can we bring in AI tools into education. So one aspect is, if I give you one example, on our digital learning platform that we've had and have for many years, we would have a tutor help desk there. And that would be very simply questions submitted by learners, and then we have a whole faculty there giving answers. So we've had, had a working group together to see, well, how can we incorporate AI into that? And make sure we've got the parameters right. So the responses that are coming back are in line with what either the curriculum or what the scenario is. So really embracing AI functionality to then allow where we provide is the more application scenario-based learning. But if I can also expand on that. What organizations are also doing with AI is they're looking at what's called AI integration. And what's currently happening is that AI is being used by certain teams, departments to automate and to enhance operational efficiency. What the next stage will be, and organizations are doing this already, is how do we use AI to interact with all the different divisions and teams within the organization, whether that's key support infrastructure roles, client services, product control, compliance, risk, client relationship teams. And therefore, how does that AI integration work between those? And that's actually a theme I mentioned about the Quants Insights. Of course, that's one of the themes there in relation to AI integration, but also AI alignment. And AI alignment is about, well, is it really aligning to what the key strategic objectives are, the human objectives and aims that we have there, and taking account the ethical considerations. So I broadened that question, so hopefully that helps. That yes, we've got aspects in learning development, the lifelong learning is being extended, but also how organizations are harnessing AI and where we see it going forwards as well.
Great, thank you very much, Rob. Next question is, what is the one piece of advice you would give to those who graduate now and are about to enter the job market?
All right, I could give lots of advice. One piece of advice, and it's going to hark back to what I said before, is don't get hung up on the technicals. I think it's this mismatch. Where we see new entrants coming in and they think, I've got to just know all the technicals. I've got to be up to speed with everything about banking, asset management, wealth management, whichever area you're working in. And actually businesses, senior stakeholders saying, look, we'll teach you that. You'll learn that. You'll learn from your peers. You'll get that. You'll understand it and be able to apply it. What we really want you to do, and this is my piece of advice, is just make sure that you have your interpersonal skills developed. And how can you do that? Just put yourself forward for anything where you're doing presentations or working in teams, or if there's any projects that are going on. The more you sort of interact and engage with others, the better. And that is the best piece of advice I can give you is don't feel and don't get hung up on the technicals. I'd say more think about how you can develop your own skills and then develop your own personal effectiveness.
Rob, thank you so much. That's been really insightful. That's brought us to the end of the webinar, so we'll have to wrap it there. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for all the questions. And we do hope to see you at our future events. Thank you very much.